Okay, let's dive in. So imagine this. You've got this big launch ceremony, a brand new warship, supposed to be this moment of national pride. And then it just, well, it doesn't go right. It sort of gets stuck. Half in the water, half still on the ramp.
Yeah, it sounds like quite a scene, and that's apparently what happened at a North Korean shipyard not long ago, based on the reporting we're looking at today.
Right, we're sort of digging into these reports detailing this. Very public and, let's face it, pretty problematic launch of their latest destroyer.
And what's really striking here, I think, is that their own state media, KCNA, actually reported something went wrong, which is, well, that's incredibly rare for them.
Hugely rare. So, okay, our mission for this deep dive, let's try to unpack what actually happened. You know, get a sense of the damage, see who Kim Jong Un is pointing fingers at.
And what it all means, right? What does this whole incident tell us about their naval ambitions, and maybe the gap between those ambitions and their actual capabilities?
Exactly. It feels like a rare chance to peek behind that curtain. So let's start right there with the incident itself. Where did this happen and what exactly failed?
Okay, so the setting is the Chongjin shipyard up in North Korea. And the event was this launch ceremony for a new destroyer, maybe around 5,000 tons. This was reportedly on a Wednesday, relative to when the news broke.
And the problem.
Sources point to the launch mechanism itself. Something went wrong there.
A technical glitch at like the worst possible moment.
Pretty much. And the result was visually quite dramatic. The back end, the stern, slid into the water way too early. But the front, the bow, was still stuck up on the shipway, high and dry.
Ouch. And the reporting really makes a point of who was there watching this happen.
Yes, Kim Jong Un himself, reportedly present for the whole thing, witnessing it firsthand.
Wow. You can only imagine the atmosphere there.
Definitely tense, I'd suspect.
So that picture, the ship half in, half out, immediately raises questions about damage, right? What did the initial analysis, looking at satellite photos and things, suggest?
Well, yeah, satellite images came out pretty quickly, and they showed the ship lying, heavily on its side, stern under the water, bow up on the land. Seeing that, naval analysts, their initial reaction was stark. They used words like catastrophic to describe the potential damage.
Catastrophic. What does that actually mean for a ship like this? What breaks?
Well, think about the stress. Experts quoted in the source material, people like Sal Mercogliano, talked about how the hull isn't designed to be supported like that. It could literally tear the hull apart.
Yeah.
Another expert, Carl Schuster, mentioned warping the hull, causing cracks, maybe even snapping the ship's spine, the keel. It's built to float evenly, not be bent over a ramp.
Okay, so that sounds potentially fatal for the ship, way beyond just embarrassing.
Exactly. But then you get North Korea's official take, which came out a bit later on Friday through KCNA.
Yes, the rare admission. What did they say happened? Still catastrophic.
This is where it gets, well, interesting. They acknowledged an issue, but really downplayed the severity considerably.
How downplayed?
They claimed the damage was much less than feared. Said there were no holes in the hull, just some scratches on the side, the starboard side. And they did admit some seawater got into the stern section, but framed it as, a certain amount, not a major flooding event.
So a massive difference between catastrophic, hull tearing apart, and a few scratches and a bit wet.
A huge gap, yeah. And that official line, combined with him seeing it happen, well, it seems Kim Jong Un wasn't happy. What did the sources say about his reaction?
Yeah, fury was the word used in the reports, citing state media. He apparently called it a criminal act.
Criminal act, strong words.
Very. Said it brought shame to the nation's prestige, and he blamed it on absolute carelessness and irresponsibility.
Okay, so not just an accident, in his view, but did he blame specific people or groups?
He did. And that's maybe quite telling. He pointed fingers directly at several big state institutions.
Like who?
The munitions industry department, for
Yeah.
one. Also Kim Chaek, University of Technology, that's a major science and tech university there. And the Central Ship Design Bureau, too.
Wow. So hitting the designers, the educators, the industry managers, that's broad.
And he vowed to punish those responsible.
So blaming institutions like that, not just, say, the shipyard manager, what does that suggest? Is this about systemic failure in his eyes?
It certainly seems like it points that way, doesn't it? I mean, when you blame the design bureau and the top tech university, it suggests you think the problem goes deeper than just, one guy turning a valve wrong on launch day.
Yeah, it implies he sees issues with the whole process, the design, the engineering, the oversight. It resonates high up. It's a serious political signal internally.
Right. Which brings us to fixing it. Given the potential damage, what's the plan? Did Kim set a deadline?
He did, and it's ambitious. He reportedly ordered it fully restored before a big political meeting, the late June plenary session of the Workers' Party Central Committee.
Before late June. That sounds fast.
Extremely fast. He even framed it as a matter of national honor to meet that deadline. And then KCNA, in that Friday report, went even further.
How much?
They claimed the repair time would only be about 10 days.
10 days. For a ship that might have a warped hull or a cracked keel lying half submerged.
Exactly. And this is where you see that stark divide between the official line and what external experts are saying.
What are the experts saying about that 10-day or even the late June timeline?
Almost universally. Forget it. They see it as completely unrealistic, maybe even impossible, depending on the true extent of the damage.
Impossible why? What's the big hurdle, technically?
The main thing highlighted in the source material is a lack of crucial infrastructure. A retired South Korean admiral, Kim Duk-uk, made this point very clearly. North Korea apparently doesn't have a dry dock big enough to handle a ship of this size for major repairs.
Okay, explain that. What's a dry dock and why is it so critical here?
So think of it like a big basin by the water, almost like a lock or a bathtub for ships. You float the ship in, close the gates, and then pump all the water out.
Ah, so the ship is left sitting high and dry on supports.
Precisely, which means workers can get to the entire hull, especially the bottom part that's normally underwater. You need that access for serious structural work, fixing bent plates, checking the keel, that kind of thing.
And without that, you just can't properly assess or fix major damage below the waterline.
It becomes incredibly difficult, if not impossible, according to Admiral Kim. He estimated that without a suitable dry dock, repairs could take over 4 or 5 months. And Carl Schuster also estimated months, definitely not weeks, let alone 10 days.
So North Korea says 10 days. Experts say if it's fixable, maybe 5 months minimum without the right gear. That's quite a gap.
It's huge. And some analyses, like one from CSIS mentioned in the source, even suggested the ship may ultimately prove to be a complete loss. It might just be too damaged to fix properly.
Wow. And what about the risks of trying to rush it, even if they try some makeshift repair?
There's a warning about that, too. A South Korean analyst, Choe Hyon-class, basically said that trying to patch it up too quickly, especially without the right facilities, could just cause more structural problems later on. You might make it look okay, but compromise its actual seaworthiness.
Right. Okay, so this whole mess, it didn't happen in a vacuum, did it? It fits into North Korea's broader military picture. Where does this failed launch sit in terms of their naval plans?
That's a really important point. Analysts cited in the source see this as a major bump in the road for what they're calling North Korea's most ambitious naval modernization effort in decades.
Is this
It wasn't just some random project.
It was supposed to be the second big reveal recently, wasn't it?
Exactly. Back in April, they unveiled another new destroyer, the Choe Hyon, that was touted as their first new destroyer design in decades, a real new generation ship.
And that one looked different.
Yeah, analysts noted it seemed like a departure from their older ships, which were mostly based on old Soviet designs. Some even saw potential design cues from more modern Russian ships in the satellite images of the Choe Hyon. And this ship, the one that had the launch problem, was thought to be basically a sister ship, equipped similarly.
So rolling out 2 big, modern-looking warships in quick succession that was clearly meant to send a message.
Absolutely, especially since their navy is often seen as the sort of lagging branch of their military, compared to their missile forces or their large army.
So this sudden spurt in shipbuilding activity was surprising.
It definitely caught observers' attention, but it also immediately raised that question: how much of this is real functional capability and how much is just for show?
Yeah.
Symbolism versus substance.
Right. Are these actual fighting ships or just impressive-looking hulls?
That's the crux of it, and the source material brings this out. Experts like Salmer Cogliano pointed out something crucial. There's been no public evidence that either of these new ships can actually sail under their own power. Meaning, North Korean state media showed them off at the dock, or in the case of this latest one, stuck on the slipway. But they haven't released photos or video of them actually underway at sea, moving independently.
So it's still unclear if they even have working engines, reliable navigation, integrated weapon systems, all that complex stuff.
Exactly. A hull is one thing, a fully operational warship is vastly more complex. This botched launch kind of accidentally gives us a glimpse into the potential difficulties they might be having with the technical execution and the supporting infrastructure.
It really throws that gap between ambition and reality into sharp focus. Okay. Lastly, the source mentioned accountability. What's the next step for the people involved in this?
Well, an accident investigation group has apparently been set up.
To figure out exactly what went wrong and who's to blame, presumably.
Right. And state media hinted that senior officials connected to the project could face criticism or censure at that upcoming Party Central Committee meeting in late June.
The same meeting Kim wanted the ship fixed before. Adds another layer of pressure, doesn't it?
It certainly seems to pile on the pressure for those deemed responsible.
Okay, let's try to pull the threads together here. What are the main takeaways from digging into this one rather disastrous ship launch?
I think there are a few key things. First, that incredibly rare public admission of a failure, even if downplayed. That's significant in itself for North Korea.
Right. Then Kim Jong Un's very personal, very angry reaction, and the fact he blamed specific, high-level institutions.
Yeah, that points to the political weight of this failure. And then there's that massive gap between their official 10-day repair claim and what basically all external experts think is realistic, highlighting potential major technical and, crucially, infrastructural limits.
It sort of peels back the curtain a bit on their big naval modernization push, doesn't it? It shows the challenges behind the pronouncements.
Definitely. It underscores the difference between, showing off a new piece of hardware and actually having the deep industrial and technical base needed to build, launch, operate, and maintain complex modern military systems effectively. This one event kind of exposes potential cracks in that system.
It makes you really question the pace versus the actual capability of valuable insight when you're trying to understand their military development.
It's a reminder that ambition needs to be backed by solid execution and infrastructure.
It really does. And maybe it leaves you, the listener, with this thought to chew on. This wasn't just swept under the rug. It was a public failure. Kim reacted furiously, and he publicly blamed key parts of his own system, the designers, the university, the industry department. What does that very public assignment of blame, even within their closed system, tell you about the internal pressures Kim might be facing, or that constant tension between projecting strength and the maybe more challenging underlying reality of their